The glass container slipped from my hands like it was made of ice. I watched my homemade lasagna splatter across the office floor, red sauce spreading like blood on the white tiles. But I couldn't look away from what was happening right in front of me. My husband Ricardo was pressed against his desk, his hands tangled in another woman's long black hair. Her red dress was bunched up around her waist, and his tie was loose around his neck. They were kissing like the world was ending, like they couldn't get enough of each other. My 8-month pregnant belly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I pressed my hand against it, feeling our baby girl kick, as if she could sense something was terribly wrong. "Ricardo?" My voice came out as a whisper, but it cut through the air like a knife. They broke apart so fast that the woman stumbled backward. Ricardo's face went white when he saw me standing in the doorway. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "Nina, we were just," he stammered, running his hands through his messy hair. The woman straightened her dress and looked at me with cold, calculating eyes. She was beautiful in a sharp, dangerous way. Her makeup was smudged, but she didn't seem embarrassed at all. Instead, she looked annoyed that I had interrupted them. "You must be the wife," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "I'm Veronica. I've heard so much about you." My legs felt weak. I gripped the doorframe to keep myself standing. "What is this? Ricardo, what is happening here?" Ricardo couldn't meet my eyes. He stared at the floor like a guilty child. "Nina, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" My voice was getting louder now, anger mixing with the shock. "Explain why you're kissing another woman in your office? Explain why you've been lying to me?" Veronica stepped forward, her high heels clicking on the floor. "Listen, honey, these things happen. Ricardo and I have a connection that you obviously can't provide anymore." She looked pointedly at my pregnant belly with disgust. The cruelty in her voice hit me like a slap. "How dare you? This is my husband. We're having a baby." "A baby that's ruining everything," Veronica snapped back. "Look at yourself. You're huge and needy and clingy. What man wants to come home to that?" Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to cry in front of this woman. "Ricardo, say something. Tell her she's wrong." But Ricardo just stood there, his shoulders slumped. When he finally looked up, there was something cold in his eyes that I'd never seen before. Maybe Veronica has a point, Nina. Things have been different since you got pregnant. You don't understand the pressure I'm under." My heart shattered into a million pieces. The man I loved, the man whose baby I was carrying, was defending this stranger over me. "I can't believe you're saying this," I whispered. Veronica smirked and moved closer to me. "Well, believe it, sweetheart. Ricardo doesn't want you anymore. Why don't you waddle on home and leave us alone?" Something inside me snapped. "Get away from me. You have no right to talk to me like that." That's when Veronica's face twisted with rage. "No right!" she screamed. "I have every right. Ricardo chose me." Before I could react, she drew her leg back and kicked me hard in my pregnant belly. The pain was instant and terrible, like lightning shooting through my body. I gasped and doubled over, my hands flying to protect my baby. "My baby!" I cried out, feeling a sharp, stabbing pain. And then Ricardo laughed. He actually laughed. The sound was cold and cruel, echoing off the office walls. "Stop being so dramatic, Nina. It wasn't that hard." I looked up at him through my tears, unable to believe what I was hearing. This wasn't the man I married. This wasn't the man who used to rub my feet when they hurt or who talked to my belly every night. Pain shot through my stomach again, and I felt something warm and wet running down my legs. Fear gripped my throat as I realized something was very wrong with my baby. "Please," I whispered. "Something's happening. I need help." But Ricardo and Veronica just stared at me with annoyed expressions, like I was ruining their moment. That's when I heard footsteps in the hallway behind me. Someone was walking toward the office with heavy, purposeful steps. The sound made both Ricardo and Veronica freeze like statues. The footsteps stopped right behind me. I could feel someone's presence in the doorway, someone important and powerful. Very slowly, I turned to see who it was. When I saw the tall figure standing there, watching everything with dark, angry eyes. I understood why Ricardo and Veronica suddenly looked like they had seen a ghost. Their faces went completely white with terror. 2 weeks before that terrible day, I was standing in my kitchen making baby shower invitations. My hands moved carefully over the pink and gold paper, writing each guest's name in my best handwriting. Everything had to be perfect for our little girl. "Only 1 more month until we meet you, baby Sophia," I whispered to my belly, feeling her kick in response. Ricardo walked into the kitchen, already dressed in his expensive suit for work. He looked handsome as always, but there was something different about him lately, something distant. "Morning, beautiful," he said, but he didn't kiss me like he used to. Instead, he grabbed his coffee mug and checked his phone immediately. I tried to ignore the hurt feeling in my chest. "I'm making the final guest list for the baby shower. Your mom wants to bring her famous chocolate cake." Ricardo mumbled, not really listening. His fingers moved quickly across his phone screen, typing something that made him smile slightly. "Who are you texting so early?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light and casual. "Just work stuff," he said quickly, shoving the phone into his pocket. "Big project coming up. I'll probably be working late again tonight." This was the 4th night this week he'd mentioned working late. Before I got pregnant, Ricardo used to rush home to spend time with me. We'd cook dinner together, watch movies, and talk about our dreams. Now he seemed to find any excuse to stay away. "Ricardo, is everything okay between us?" I asked softly. "You seem different lately." He finally looked up from his coffee, and for a moment I saw something guilty flash across his face. But then he smiled that charming smile I fell in love with 3 years ago. "Everything's fine, Nina. I'm just stressed about providing for our family. This baby is going to be expensive, and I want to make sure we have everything we need." His answer made sense, but something in my heart didn't believe it. I'd been feeling this growing distance between us for weeks now. Sometimes I caught him staring at his phone with a secret smile. Other times he'd step outside to take calls, saying it was boring work stuff that would put me to sleep. "I love you," I said, hoping to hear him say it back with the same feeling he used to have. "Love you too," he replied, but it sounded automatic, like he was reading from a script. After Ricardo left for work, I sat at our kitchen table feeling more alone than ever. The house felt too quiet and too big. I looked at the framed photos on the wall. Our wedding day, our honeymoon in Mexico, last Christmas when we found out I was pregnant. In every picture, Ricardo looked at me like I was the most important thing in his world. When did that change? I tried to push away the dark thoughts creeping into my mind. Maybe I was just being emotional because of the pregnancy hormones. Dr. Wells had warned me that feelings could get intense during the final months. But something was definitely wrong. Ricardo used to text me sweet messages throughout the day. Now his phone was always face down when I was around. He used to rub my feet when they hurt from carrying extra weight. Now he barely touched me at all. I decided to do something special to bring back the spark in our marriage. Ricardo always loved my homemade lasagna. It was the first meal I ever cooked for him when we were dating. Maybe if I surprised him at work with lunch, we could remember why we fell in love. The next morning, I spent 3 hours in the kitchen, carefully layering the pasta, meat sauce, and cheese just the way he liked it. The smell filled our house with warmth and love. I imagined Ricardo's face lighting up when I walked into his office with his favorite meal. I put on my best maternity dress, the blue one that made my eyes look bright, and carefully packed the lasagna in our special glass container. My reflection in the hallway mirror showed a glowing, pregnant woman, full of hope and love. "Daddy's going to be so surprised," I told baby Sophia as I grabbed my keys. "This will fix everything between us." The drive to Sterling Associates took 20 minutes through busy traffic. I hummed along to the radio, feeling more optimistic than I had in weeks. Other drivers smiled and waved when they saw my pregnant belly behind the steering wheel. I parked in the visitors section and carefully carried the warm lasagna container through the lobby. The security guard, Tony, recognized me and smiled big. "Mrs. Torres, here to surprise the husband again?" "You know it," I laughed. "He's been working so hard lately." Tony's expression changed slightly, like he wanted to say something but held back. He's been putting in long hours, that's for sure. I took the elevator to the 4th floor, my heart beating fast with excitement. The hallway was quiet since it was lunchtime. Most people were probably out eating or in the break room. Ricardo's office door was slightly open. I could hear voices inside, his voice and a woman's voice I didn't recognize. They were talking quietly, almost whispering. I smiled, thinking maybe he was on a work call and I could wait outside until he finished. But as I got closer to the door, I heard something that made my blood freeze. "I can't wait until this baby is born and things can go back to normal," Ricardo was saying. "Nina's been so emotional and needy. It's exhausting." "Poor baby," the woman's voice replied mockingly. "Don't worry, I'll take care of you." My hand was reaching for the door handle when I heard the sound of movement, shuffling, and then quiet moaning. I pushed the door open just a crack and peered inside. That's when my perfect world fell apart. Veronica Kane had planned everything perfectly. 6 months ago, when she first walked into Sterling Associates wearing her tightest black dress, she had already decided which man she wanted to steal. She researched every male employee before accepting the executive assistant position. Most were single or divorced, but those men were too easy. Veronica liked a challenge. She wanted someone who would give her the thrill of the hunt. Ricardo Torres was perfect, handsome, successful, and completely devoted to his pregnant wife. The harder the target, the sweeter the victory would taste. Men are so predictable, Veronica told herself as she studied Ricardo's social media pages. She memorized every detail about Nina, her favorite flowers, her hobbies, even her pregnancy timeline. Knowledge was power, and Veronica planned to use every piece of information as a weapon. The first week, Veronica played the role of the perfect employee. She brought Ricardo coffee exactly how he liked it, stayed late to help with projects, and listened sympathetically when he mentioned feeling overwhelmed about becoming a father. "It's normal to feel scared," she said one evening as they worked alone in his office. "Having a baby changes everything. Your whole life stops being about what you want." Ricardo looked up from his computer, surprised that someone finally understood his fears. "Nina keeps talking about how wonderful everything will be, but honestly, I'm terrified. What if I'm not ready to be a father?" Veronica moved her chair closer to his desk. "Of course you're not ready. No man is. And pregnant women don't understand the pressure we put on ourselves to provide and protect." She was careful with her words, planting seeds of doubt about Nina while positioning herself as the understanding friend he needed. Week after week, Veronica chipped away at Ricardo's loyalty. She dressed slightly more revealing each day, testing how far she could push without being obvious. She complimented his intelligence, his ambition, his looks, all the things a tired pregnant woman might forget to do. "Your wife is lucky to have someone so dedicated," Veronica would say, knowing that Nina probably hadn't told Ricardo that lately. Ricardo began staying later at work, accepting Veronica's offers to help with projects that could have been finished earlier. He started complaining more about Nina's mood swings, her tiredness, her focus on baby preparations instead of him. "I feel invisible in my own home," Ricardo confessed one night after Nina had fallen asleep early again. "Everything revolves around the baby now. I don't know where I fit anymore." Veronica saw her opening. "You deserve to feel special too, Ricardo. Just because you're becoming a father doesn't mean you stop being a man with needs." She started bringing him lunch from expensive restaurants, claiming the company was paying for it. She laughed at all his jokes, even the bad ones. She asked his opinion on everything, making him feel important and valued. Meanwhile, Nina sat at home feeling sick and tired, dealing with swollen feet and back pain. She tried to call Ricardo during the day, but he was always in meetings with Veronica. When he came home late, he was too exhausted to talk or spend time together. "I miss us," Nina had said last week, tears in her eyes. "I feel like we're strangers living in the same house." Ricardo's guilt almost broke through Veronica's spell that night. He almost told Nina about the growing feelings he was developing for his assistant. But Veronica had prepared for this moment too. The next day, she wore her lowest cut blouse and spoke in whispers that made Ricardo lean close to hear her. "Nina doesn't appreciate what she has," Veronica murmured. "If you were my husband, I'd never make you feel unwanted." 3 weeks ago, Veronica made her final move. She asked Ricardo to help her move a heavy box in the storage room. When he bent down to lift it, she pressed herself against his back, her hands covering his on the box. "Veronica," Ricardo breathed, his heart racing. "I can't help how I feel about you," she whispered into his ear. "I know you feel it too." When Ricardo turned around, she was inches from his face. The storage room was dark and private. His wedding ring felt heavy on his finger as he looked into her hungry eyes. "This is wrong," he said weakly. "This is right," she corrected him. "This is what you deserve." And then she kissed him. Ricardo's resistance crumbled like a house of cards. All of Veronica's careful planning, all her patient manipulation, had led to this moment. She had won. From that day forward, they met in secret whenever possible. Veronica made sure to schedule their encounters when Nina was at doctor appointments or resting at home. She convinced Ricardo that what they had was special, that Nina could never understand him the way she did. "Your wife is holding you back," Veronica whispered during one of their stolen moments. "After the baby comes, she'll be even more focused on being a mother. You'll disappear completely." Ricardo believed every lie because he wanted to, because Veronica made him feel young and desired instead of scared and trapped. Neither of them expected Nina to show up that day with lunch, ready to fight for her marriage. I pushed the office door open wider, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The glass container of lasagna felt heavy in my trembling hands as I stepped into Ricardo's office. The scene in front of me was like something from a nightmare. Ricardo had Veronica pressed against his desk, her legs wrapped around his waist. His hands were tangled in her hair, and they were kissing with desperate hunger, like they couldn't get enough of each other. For a moment, time stopped. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't move. This was my husband, the man who promised to love only me forever, the father of the baby growing inside me. The glass container slipped from my numb fingers and crashed to the floor. The sound echoed through the office like a gunshot. They broke apart instantly. Ricardo's face went white as a sheet when he saw me standing there. Veronica straightened her wrinkled red dress, but she didn't look ashamed. She looked angry that I had interrupted them. "Nina!" Ricardo gasped, his voice cracking. "What are you doing here?" "What am I doing here?" I repeated, my voice rising. "What are you doing here? With her?" Ricardo tried to step away from Veronica, but she kept her hand on his chest possessively. "I can explain everything," he stammered. "Explain what?" I shouted. "Explain why you're cheating on your pregnant wife? Explain why you're destroying our family?" Veronica rolled her eyes and stepped forward. "Oh, please, don't be so dramatic. These things happen all the time." I stared at her in shock. "Dramatic? Dramatic? You're sleeping with my husband. And he's much happier with me than he ever was with you," Veronica said coldly. "Look at yourself. You're huge and miserable. What man wants to come home to that every night?" Her words hit me like physical blows. I looked down at my pregnant belly, suddenly feeling ashamed of my body that was growing our baby. "Ricardo, tell her she's wrong," I begged, tears starting to blur my vision. "Tell her you love me. Tell her about our baby." But Ricardo wouldn't meet my eyes. He stared at the floor like a coward. When he finally spoke, his words destroyed what was left of my heart. "Maybe, Nina, maybe things have changed between us. Ever since you got pregnant, you've been different. Moody and clingy and difficult." "Difficult?" I whispered. "I'm carrying your baby. I'm tired and scared, and I need my husband's support. And I need someone who understands me," Ricardo shot back. "Someone who doesn't make everything about the baby all the time." Veronica smirked triumphantly. "Someone who actually cares about your needs, not just her own." The betrayal was so deep it felt like drowning. "I can't believe you're saying this. I can't believe either of you are saying this." "Well, believe it," Veronica snapped, moving closer to me. "Ricardo doesn't want you anymore. Why don't you take your pathetic lunch and waddle home where you belong?" Something inside me exploded. "Don't you dare talk to me like that. This is my husband. We're married. We're having a baby together." "A baby he doesn't even want," Veronica hissed, He told me he wishes you'd never gotten pregnant. He said it was a mistake. I looked at Ricardo desperately, silently begging him to deny her words, but he just stood there, guilt written all over his face. Is that true? I whispered. Do you really feel that way about our baby? Ricardo's silence was my answer. I hate you, I sobbed. I hate both of you for destroying our family. That's when Veronica's face twisted with pure rage. You know what? I'm sick of listening to you whine. She drew her leg back and kicked me hard in my pregnant belly. The pain was instant and excruciating, like being hit by lightning. I screamed and doubled over, my hands flying to protect my baby. My baby! Oh God, my baby! I cried, feeling sharp cramps shooting through my stomach, and then I heard the most horrible sound in the world. Ricardo laughed. He actually laughed at my pain, at his unborn daughter's danger. The sound was cold and cruel, echoing off the office walls like the devil himself was speaking. Stop being so dramatic, Nina, he said with that same heartless laugh. It wasn't that hard. You're fine. But I wasn't fine. Warm liquid was running down my legs, and the cramping was getting worse. Something was very wrong with my baby, and the man who was supposed to protect us both was standing there laughing at my terror. Please, I gasped. I think something's happening to the baby. I need help. Ricardo and Veronica just stared at me with annoyed expressions like I was a piece of garbage disrupting their perfect moment. That's when heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Someone was walking toward the office with purpose and authority. The sound made both Ricardo and Veronica freeze like deer caught in headlights. The footsteps stopped right behind me in the doorway. I could feel someone's powerful presence, someone important who radiated authority and control. Very slowly, I turned around to see who had arrived. When I saw the tall, imposing figure standing there with dark, furious eyes, I finally understood why Ricardo and Veronica suddenly looked like they were staring at death itself. Mr. Harrison Cole stood in the doorway like a mountain of controlled fury. His silver hair was perfectly styled despite just returning from a business trip, and his expensive suit couldn't hide the powerful build of a man who had served 20 years in the military before building his business empire. But it was his eyes that made Ricardo and Veronica freeze in absolute terror. Those dark eyes had seen battlefields and boardrooms, had stared down enemies and competitors without flinching. Right now, they were filled with a cold rage that could have melted steel. What, he said in a voice so quiet it was more terrifying than shouting, is happening in my office building? I was still doubled over, clutching my belly as waves of pain shot through my body. Blood was seeping through my dress, and I could feel my baby moving frantically inside me, as if she knew we were both in danger. Ricardo's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Mr. Cole! Sir, I didn't know you were back from Chicago. I thought your trip was until tomorrow. Obviously, Harrison said, his eyes taking in every detail of the scene. The spilled lasagna on the floor, Veronica's disheveled appearance, Ricardo's loose tie and guilty expression, and me, bleeding and in pain, holding my pregnant belly. Harrison's jaw clenched as he stepped into the office. At 6 feet 4 inches tall, he towered over everyone in the room. Mrs. Torres, are you all right? The kindness in his voice toward me made fresh tears spill down my cheeks. Here was a stranger showing more concern for my welfare than my own husband. I think something's wrong with my baby, I whispered. She kicked me, and now I'm bleeding. Harrison's face went from angry to absolutely murderous. 20 years ago, his wife died giving birth to their son because complications weren't treated fast enough. Since then, he had donated millions to maternal health causes and had zero tolerance for anyone who endangered pregnant women. She what? Harrison's voice boomed through the office. Veronica finally found her voice, but it came out shaky and desperate. Mr. Cole, you don't understand. She attacked me first. I was just defending myself. Harrison turned to look at Veronica with such intensity that she actually took a step backward. You're telling me that a woman who is 8 months pregnant attacked you? Yes. She came in here screaming and threatening me because she's jealous that Ricardo and I work together. That's a lie, I gasped through the pain. I brought him lunch to surprise him and found them. Found them doing what, Mrs. Torres? Harrison asked gently, but his eyes never left Veronica's face. Kissing, I sobbed. They were kissing, and when I said something, she kicked my belly, and Ricardo laughed. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Harrison pulled out his phone with movements so controlled they were frightening. Security, this is Harrison Cole. I need you in my building immediately. I also need 911 dispatched for a pregnant woman who has been assaulted. Mr. Cole, please. Ricardo stepped forward desperately. Let me explain. This is all a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding, Harrison said without looking at him, is how you thought you could conduct yourself this way in my company. He knelt down beside me with surprising gentleness for such a large man. Mrs. Torres, I need you to stay calm. Help is coming. Can you tell me where the pain is worst? His military training showed as he quickly assessed my condition. He grabbed tissues from Ricardo's desk and pressed them against the bleeding, applying just enough pressure to help without hurting me further. My lower back and stomach, I whispered. It feels like the baby is trying to come out. We're not going to let that happen, Harrison said firmly. You're going to be fine, and so is your daughter. Veronica tried to edge toward the door, but Harrison's voice stopped her cold. Miss Kane, you will remain exactly where you are. I don't have to listen to you, she protested. Actually, you do. Harrison's smile was colder than winter ice. Because in the last 10 minutes, I've discovered some very interesting information about company credit card misuse, unauthorized expense reports, and equipment that's gone missing from this office. Ricardo's face went gray. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the expensive jewelry charged to company accounts, the hotel rooms booked on company credit, the laptop and tablet that were reported stolen but somehow ended up at Miss Kane's apartment. Harrison had been investigating for weeks. The financial irregularities had triggered automatic alerts in the company's security system. He'd planned to handle it quietly when he returned from his business trip, but finding Ricardo and Veronica together while assaulting a pregnant woman changed everything. You've been stealing from me to fund your affair, Harrison continued, and now you've graduated to assault. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Veronica's confident mask finally cracked, revealing the panic underneath. This is all her fault, Veronica screamed, pointing at me. She came here to cause trouble. The only trouble here, Harrison said as paramedics rushed into the office, is that I hired 2 criminals who think they're smarter than they actually are. As the paramedics carefully lifted me onto a stretcher, Harrison's hand briefly touched my shoulder. You're going to be all right, Mrs. Torres. Both of you are going to be just fine. But looking at Ricardo and Veronica's terrified faces as police officers entered behind the paramedics, I knew their nightmare was just beginning. The hospital room smelled like disinfectant and fear. I lay on the narrow bed, monitors attached to my belly tracking my baby's heartbeat. Each beep reminded me that Sophia was still alive, still fighting to stay safe inside me. Dr. Wells checked the ultrasound screen for the 3rd time, her face serious but relieved. The baby is stable, Nina. No signs of distress. The bleeding has stopped and her heart rate is strong. I closed my eyes and whispered a prayer of thanks. But the pain was so terrible. I thought I was losing her. Stress and trauma can cause bleeding during pregnancy, Dr. Wells explained gently. What happened to you was assault, Nina. Your body went into shock, but you and Sophia are both fighters. Through the thin hospital walls, I could hear raised voices in the hallway. Someone was arguing with the nurses, demanding to see me. That's Ricardo, I said quietly. He's probably worried about the baby. Dr. Wells's expression hardened. The man who laughed when you were attacked? Nina, I've been your doctor for 8 months. I've seen how pregnancy should be supported, and this isn't it. The door burst open, and Ricardo rushed in, his hair messy and his shirt wrinkled. But before he could reach my bed, a large hand grabbed his shoulder and stopped him. Harrison Cole stood behind Ricardo like a guardian angel in an expensive suit. His presence filled the small room with quiet authority. You're not welcome here, Harrison said calmly. She's my wife, Ricardo protested. That's my baby. I have every right to be here. You lost those rights when you allowed your mistress to assault your pregnant wife, Harrison replied. And when you laughed about it, Ricardo's face crumpled as the reality of his situation hit him. Nina, please. I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me. I love you. I love our baby. But his words felt empty now, like lies wrapped in pretty paper. If you loved us, you wouldn't have cheated. If you loved us, you would have protected us. I made a mistake, Ricardo cried. People make mistakes. You can't just throw away our marriage. Harrison pulled out his phone and showed Ricardo the screen. These aren't mistakes. These are crimes. On the phone were bank statements, credit card records, and hotel receipts. Months of evidence showing Ricardo using company money to pay for his affair with Veronica. The jewelry you bought her, company credit card. The hotel rooms for your secret meetings, company account. The expensive dinners, the weekend trips, all stolen from Sterling Associates. Ricardo's face went white. I was going to pay it back. It was just borrowing. Borrowing? Harrison's laugh was bitter. $43,000 over 6 months? That's not borrowing. That's embezzlement. My heart stopped. $43,000? Ricardo, how could you? And that's not all, Harrison continued. Miss Kane has been selling company information to our competitors. Client lists, project details, pricing strategies. She's been using her access to steal and sell our business secrets. The room felt like it was spinning. My husband wasn't just a cheater. He was a criminal. And the woman who attacked me was a corporate spy. I trusted you, I whispered to Ricardo. I believed in you. I thought we were building a life together. Ricardo dropped to his knees beside my hospital bed. We can still have that life. I'll quit my job, we'll move away, start over somewhere new. With what money? Harrison asked coldly. You'll both be facing criminal charges. Miss Kane is already in custody downstairs. The police are waiting to arrest you too. Ricardo's face crumpled. Nina, please, don't let them do this to me. Tell them it was all Veronica's idea. Tell them I was manipulated. I looked at this man I had loved for 3 years. This man who was supposed to be my partner and protector. But all I saw now was a stranger who had betrayed everything we built together. You chose this, I said quietly. When you chose to cheat, when you chose to steal, when you chose to laugh while I was being hurt, you chose this path. Dr. Wells stepped forward protectively. Mr. Torres, you need to leave. My patient needs rest, not more stress. But the baby is mine too, Ricardo pleaded. The baby you said was a mistake? I asked, my voice growing stronger. The baby whose mother you watched get attacked without defending her? Harrison placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. Mrs. Torres, I want you to know that Sterling Associates will be pressing full charges against both of them. What they did to you and your company will have consequences. The door opened, and my sister Lucia rushed in, her face pale with worry. Harrison had called my family while I was being examined. Nina, oh my God, are you okay? Is the baby okay? Seeing Lucia's familiar face broke down the last of my walls. I sobbed as she hugged me carefully, avoiding my belly. He betrayed us, Lucia. He betrayed us all. Lucia looked at Ricardo with pure disgust. Get out. Get out right now before I call security myself. As Ricardo was led away by security guards, he turned back one last time. Nina, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. But sorry couldn't fix what he had broken. Sorry couldn't undo the lies, the theft, or the moment he laughed while his pregnant wife was being attacked. As the door closed behind him, I felt something shift inside me. Not physical pain this time, but emotional strength I didn't know I had. He's gone, I whispered to my belly. But we're going to be okay, baby Sophia. We're going to be just fine without him. 3 months later, I sat in the courtroom holding my beautiful baby Sophia in my arms. She was perfect. 10 tiny fingers, 10 tiny toes, and the most gorgeous dark eyes that seemed to take in everything around her. Despite all the trauma during my pregnancy, she had been born healthy and strong, just like her mama was learning to be. All rise for the Honorable Judge Martinez, the bailiff announced. I stood carefully, adjusting Sophia in my arms. Across the courtroom, Ricardo sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed in front of him. He looked thin and tired, nothing like the confident man I had married 3 years ago. Next to him sat Veronica, also in prison clothes. Her beautiful hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and without makeup, she looked much younger and more ordinary. The glamorous mask she had worn to seduce my husband was completely gone. "Mr. Torres," Judge Martinez said, looking over his glasses, "you have pleaded guilty to embezzlement, fraud, and accessory to assault. Do you have anything to say before sentencing?" Ricardo stood slowly. For a moment, his eyes found mine across the courtroom. I saw regret there, real regret, but it was too late for sorry. "Your Honor," Ricardo began, his voice barely above a whisper, "I destroyed the most important things in my life for something that was never real. I stole money, I betrayed my wife, and I failed to protect my family when they needed me most." He looked at Sophia, sleeping peacefully in my arms. "I will spend every day for the rest of my life regretting what I did to them. I accept full responsibility for my actions." Judge Martinez nodded grimly. "Mr. Torres, you are sentenced to 4 years in state prison for embezzlement and fraud. You will also pay full restitution to Sterling Associates." Ricardo's shoulders shook, but he didn't cry. He had used up all his tears during the 3 months since his arrest. "Miss Kane," the judge continued, "you have been found guilty of assault on a pregnant woman, corporate espionage, and theft. Your actions show a complete disregard for human decency and the law." Veronica tried to look defiant, but I could see fear in her eyes. "Your Honor, I was emotionally manipulated. I never meant for things to go so far." "You kicked a pregnant woman in the stomach and sold company secrets for personal profit," Judge Martinez said sternly. "Your intentions were clear. You are sentenced to 6 years in state prison." Veronica's face crumpled as the reality hit her. 6 years of her life gone because she wanted to steal someone else's husband. As they led both Ricardo and Veronica away in handcuffs, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not satisfaction or happiness, but peace. Justice had been served, and now I could finally move forward. Outside the courthouse, Harrison waited by his car with my sister Lucia. Over the past 3 months, he had become an unexpected guardian angel in our lives. "How do you feel?" he asked as we walked down the courthouse steps. "Free," I said honestly. "For the first time in months, I feel completely free." Harrison smiled, the same gentle smile he'd been giving Sophia since the day she was born. "Sterling Associates would like to offer you a position in our graphic design department, full benefits, flexible hours, and a nursery on site for working mothers." I looked down at Sophia, who was starting to wake up and make little cooing sounds. "Mr. Cole, you've already done so much for us. Please, call me Harrison. And I'm not doing this out of charity. You're talented, you're strong, and after what you've been through, you understand the value of loyalty and honesty." Lucia squeezed my arm. "Nina, this is perfect. You and Sophia can have a fresh start." 2 weeks later, I stood in my new apartment, hanging pictures on the walls. It was smaller than the house I had shared with Ricardo, but it felt like home in a way that place never had. Every corner held hope instead of lies. Sophia lay on her playmat, reaching for colorful toys and babbling happily. She would never remember the drama of her first months, but she would grow up knowing her mother was strong enough to protect them both. My phone buzzed with a text from Harrison. "First day tomorrow. Sophia's nursery is ready, and the design team is excited to meet you." I picked up my daughter and walked to the window overlooking the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. "Sophia," I whispered into her soft hair, "I want you to remember something as you grow up. Never let anyone treat you the way your father treated me. Never accept less than complete love and respect. You are worth more than diamonds, and any man who can't see that doesn't deserve you." Sophia looked up at me with those wise, dark eyes and smiled as if she understood every word. I had lost a cheating husband and gained an entire future. I had learned that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can actually be the best thing, because it forces you to become the person you were always meant to be. Strong, independent, unbreakable. Looking out at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the darkness, I knew that Sophia and I were going to be just fine. Better than fine. We were going to be amazing. The story that began with betrayal and pain had become a story of justice, strength, and new beginnings. And this was only the start of our beautiful life together.